The Sisters of Battle, also known as the Adepta Sororitas, are an all-female elite fighting force in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Serving the Imperium of Man, they are highly trained, loyal warriors dedicated to the Emperor of Mankind and operate as the military's arm of the Ecclesiarchy. Known for their strict discipline, unshakable faith and religious fury, the Sisters of Battle carry power armor, iconography and the use of holy weaponry make them an iconic and feared force on the battlefield. In this video, we'll explore how to capture their fierce devotion and battle-worn aesthetic from assembly to the final details that reflects their unbreakable faith. I'll also be showcasing the latest Phase 2 releases from Villainy inks, highlighting versatile techniques to use these new inks both on the miniature themselves and in crafting atmospheric bases. Join me as we elevate these warriors of the Ecclesiarchy to truly embody the spirit of the dark and dystopian universe. Greetings everyone, Nate the Feral Painter here, and for this project my goal was to make this Sister of Battle radiate a truly holy battle-worn aura. To achieve that, I started by adding candles to the model and blending them in seamlessly into the surface with UV resin. You can also use this to apply fine streaks of resin as dripping wax. Next, I raided my bits box to find small relics to attach to the miniature, adding an extra layer of reverence. If you're looking for some customization tips, simple jewelry kits from most craft stores are perfect for creating unique relics and embellishments. I always keep a box of these on hand for whenever the inspiration strikes. Some additional items that I added around the miniature are chains and skulls. I think these are an essential for building that Grimdark feel, so I use these along with some extra purity seals and oaths in and around the miniature. For more depth, I added some wires and pipes for that mechanical, worn out look. To enhance the texture, I stippled some liquid green stuff along the lower parts of her robes and applied some typhus corrosion to the more weathered areas of her armour and relics. For a final touch, I gently scratched and scraped sections of the armour to simulate battle damage. The key here is to lightly press and scratch to create marks that will really come to life in the weathering stages. To create the base, I used cork for a solid rocky foundation, adding texture paste and of course decorating with skulls. After all, you can never have enough skulls in this Grimdark universe. With the model fully built, we're ready to prime and bring this holy warrior to life. For this Sister of Battle, I wanted her armour to radiate purity, a beacon of light in the darkness. To capture this, I chose a rich shadowed white armour with deep contrast that emphasises the armour's shapes and presence. So I'm going to start by priming the entire model in a coat of Stynal Res Black Primer. This dark base will provide strong shadows, adding richness and depth beneath the white. I'm then going to follow this up by a zenithal highlight of Stynal Res Grey Primer, aiming from above to create soft midtones on the upward facing surfaces. And finally, I'm going to apply Stynal Res White Primer and focus on the armour plates and the highest points. Concentrate the spray on the areas that would catch the most light, giving the armour its final bright white tone while preserving the shadows below. This three-step process will allow you to create a stunning shadowed white without needing to rely on pure white alone. After the initial black primer, if you don't have the colours that I've used, you can simply use your favourite grey and white paints. After painting that white armour, I added some subtle chipping with Rhinox hide to the edges to enhance its battle-worn look. Now I'll quickly go over the rest of the base coats, as it's the weathering steps that will really bring this miniature to life. So her undergarments and weapons were painted with AK Burnt Red, and the rest of her robes were base coated in AK Smoke. For all the leather areas, such as the belts, straps and pouches, I used Citadel's Rhinox hide. All the metallic parts were painted in AK gunmetal, followed by a light dry brush of silver to enhance the shine and add some dimensions to the metallic elements. The large relic that she's holding was painted in Pro Acryl bronze, followed by the candles, which were given a base coat of AK deck tan. For the purity seals, I started with AK dark brown, adding small amounts of AK light with each successive highlight. For this, I used a scratchy, sketchy effect, and this will give the seals a worn, parchment-like appearance. Finally, the skulls were base coated in Citadel's Karak stone, then mixed with a touch of Screaming Skull for the highlights, bringing out the texture with a natural bone-like finish. With these base coats complete, it will provide a strong foundation for the following layers of weathering that will bring depth and storytelling to the finished piece. So we're going to start off our weathering process with Villainy Inc.'s Goons Grime, applying it as a unifying wash. Goons Grime has a thin binder and mixes well with a simple handshake, and it can be used neat or thinned with mineral spirits. I begin to apply Goons Grime through an airbrush to create a thin, consistent layer across the miniature, but I'm trying to avoid the white armour itself. But don't worry if you do get any overspray or excess onto other areas, as these can easily be cleaned off. I also allow some of the wash to gather up thicker around the lower half of the miniature, especially the feet and the lower legs, for a natural build-up of grime. For this airbrush application, I thinned the wash 1-to-1 with mineral spirits, resulting in a matte finish. For the base, I added a couple more drops of mineral spirits to ensure that it's in a 2-to-1 ratio for the base, and this will result in a drier, chalkier finish. Give the Goons Grime around 15 minutes to dry, or you can use a blow dryer to speed up this process, and then I come in with a sponge, brush or a Q-tip to gently remove it in the areas where you want less coverage. A Q-tip lightly moistened with mineral spirits will help you reactivate the enamel by gently tapping or dabbing to remove it. I used a moistened end to reactivate the enamel, then flip it over to the dry side to remove or blend the grime. For the robes themselves, I used a brush dampened with mineral spirits, and this just allowed me to manipulate the Goons Grime into streaks. For our next stage, we're going to be using Villainy Inc.'s Decrepit Filth. This is a dark black-brown enamel wash from the new Villainy Inc.'s Phase 2 line. You can head over to the Grimdark Compendium right now and grab one of the tester kits for yourselves with 7 brand new colours. Decrepit Filth is an enamel wash that dries matte and is fantastic for creating shadows and separating details, adding even more depth and contrast to the model. I start off by shaking the bottle thoroughly, then decant a few drops onto a palette. I do find that a large Citadel base works well and can easily be wiped down after each use. Using a brush for the darkest recesses, I apply Decrepit Filth neat, unthinned, focusing on deepening the shadows and into the crevice areas. To help it flow smoothly into other areas such as around armour edges, I thin Decrepit Filth 1-to-1 with mineral spirits on my palette, and this will help define the separation between armour panels, and I even used it on other areas like the gun and the robes. It can be used to increase the contrast in any areas that you require. If you do find that any other areas need additional depth, simply add another small amount of Decrepit Filth. It's okay if some of the wash as well stains nearby areas unintentionally, as this can enhance the weathered look, adding a touch of natural grime. With Villainy Inc.'s long working time, you can revisit touch dry areas to adjust or push the pigment as desired. To do this, I use a small brush lightly dampened with mineral spirits to manipulate the enamel, moving it back into the recesses or gently blending it to create a smooth transition. Once complete, this will leave the model with contrasted armour with realistic grime and oil stains. The combination of Goons Grime and Decrepit Filth creates a striking finish while grounding the model in a rugged, battle-worn aesthetic. To enhance the aged look of some of the metallic areas, I added Villainy Inks Sector Rust thinned 1:1 with Mineral Spirits. This enamel creates the perfect matte finish for those rusty, corroded areas. For added variation in the rust tones, I layered Ex Machina atop of that, a new addition to the range that complements Sector Rust beautifully, delivering subtle differences in colour and texture to enhance the overall look of the corrosion. For the verdigris effect on the relic, I started with Villainy Inks Colia Green, applying it in varied thickness. Some areas were coated neatly, while others were thinned 1:1 with Mineral Spirits. This special effects enamel dries satin to a gloss finish, allowing me to create a natural variation in the surface finish, adding depth to the patina. To intensify the look of the decay, I layered Decay of Death over the green, focusing more on the heavily corroded areas. For most weathered sections, I also applied All Is Dust directly from the palette without thinning. These final layers dry matte to chalky, blending seamlessly with the satin and gloss of the Colia Green to produce a complex, multi-layered finish. This perfectly captures the relic's ancient, worn character. To paint her face, I began with a base coat of Cadian Flesh Tone, followed by a unifying wash of Caput Mortem. This enamel wash is versatile, but here it adds depth and warmth to the sister's face, lending a subtle reddish undertone that brings character to her features. I thinned Caput Mortem 1:1 with Mineral Spirits, carefully glazing it onto her cheeks and around the eyes to enhance contrast and create a natural depth. Thanks to the brightness of the base coat, no additional highlights were needed to bring out the contours of her face. For added dimension, I used a hint of Colia Green around her eyes, which deepens the shadows. To complete the look, I painted a small tattoo on her face, adding a final touch of personality to this battle-hardened warrior. For some final touches on the sister, I added some blighted bone ochre to the candles and a few of the skulls to create a subtle tonal shifts and bring variation to those details. To simulate battlefield dust, I used All Is Dust in a splatter effect around the lower half of the model and across the base. Applied neat, this enamel dries to a chalky texture, which when lightly dusted with a clean dry brush, gives a convincing dust effect that adds realism to the scene. On her robes, I applied some soft pressing to replicate the wear and tear of the fabric exposed to the harsh conditions. This gentle technique enhances the rugged, worn look of the robe, and I go over this in detail on my latest project over at the Grimdark Compendium. The newest episode of the Cadian Shock Troopers is now available on the Grimdark Compendium. In this series, I guide you through building and painting the Cadian Shock Troopers. In that course, I also show you how to build a custom Hydra turret, while the final episode shows how to build and paint a ruined city diorama set in the world of Cadia. Whilst you're over at the Grimdark Compendium, be sure to check out our winter sale bundles. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for coming along and watching this video, and it'd mean the world to me if you could just hit that like button. I've been Nate the Feral Painter, and until next time guys, I will catch you in the next video.